walked the face of the earth in the United States. He is arguably the greatest president we've ever had. And as people that have tuned into the show and have heard some recordings, which you can always find on, is it WSMNradio.com? And Tim is nodding his head at WSMNradio.com. There are archives. Have been talking about how wonderful and how great President Barack Obama has been for his tenure here. And thankfully, we have another 2 more years coming up.
So if you didn't listen to the transition, and you're a fool if you're missing Nashua This Morning with George Russell, I feel I was in the room with 2 dead people. The brains, well, actually, we should say lack of cranial activity. We should use bigger words. This is talk radio, after all. DJs could say brain dead. I'd like to say that you got that head injury sometime in the last month because you think Barack Obama, and you're going to make the case, is the greatest president. George Russell, despite the wisdom of age, where you're supposed to, take your life experiences and learn things, is a Jets fan.
Well, all right, being a Jets fan,
I see a similarity.
I'm going to at least make an argument. There is no argument to being a Jets fan. There really isn't, unless, of course, like you met Joe Namath. You met the only winner to ever be on that team, ever. And it really is nice to watch them go down in a ball of flames. And the coach is most likely going to be fired by the end of the year. I mean, that really is nice to see, that the Jets are going down in a ball of flames. And George Russell just stopped at a pause, and I thought he was going to get sick on the floor.
I don't know. He looks like the guy that robbed the bank downstairs about 3 years ago. Did you see that hat?
With that hat, he looks pretty bad.
Yeah, BOA, lock it up now.
He looks a little shifty. But now back to what I was bringing up on why he's great. Everything that's starting to happen in the news. One of the big things, unfortunately, is the Grant case in New York. Don't know how there was not an indictment on the police officer for putting somebody in what is ultimately, the end of the day, is an illegal hold. You're not supposed to put somebody in a choke hold. You can put them in a sleeper hold. Apparently, he didn't implement it correctly, and he took somebody's life for nothing more than selling individual cigarettes, which is not legal, but it's not a heinous crime that you should even manhandled by, how many cops was it in the video? 5, 6, 37. It should have never happened. Absolutely disgusting, but as we've said in Eyes and Ears Wide Open, I'm not trying to diminish what had happened. It is absolutely disgusting what happened. The cop should not be a cop. The Grant family should get some form of justice. There should be something happening. And it's hard. Unlike the Ferguson case, there's video. Video from the start, video to the ending. Everyone can see what is going on, and everyone can see what had happened. And I would love somebody to try to tell me that wasn't disgusting. I'd like to see somebody argue that was justified by the police. It was absolutely, when he's sitting on the ground saying, I can't breathe, and they still implemented the supposed sleeper hold and no one helped. It's just absolutely, absolutely disgusting. But I'm, once again, not trying to diminish. What we are trying to point out is that it's just one more distraction, like the NFL and all the insanity in the NFL. And we talked a little bit about the L.A. Clippers back a couple months ago when the owner was making the racial comments. And here at Eyes and Ears Wide Open, I'd like to think I was one of the only people to say, look at what he did. It was genius.
Mm-hmm.
He has a basketball organization that was worth $600 million, an organization that's never going to win because his fingers, as long as he was attached, they were never going to win because he was in on the selection of players and team morale, and he was actually too active. And the Clippers, they're just never going to win a championship with that recipe. He ends up making one ridiculous comment, or maybe two, and the backstory that no one brings to light. How much did they sell the organization for?
Well, it started with a B as in billions.
Oh, yeah. $2 billion. So because he made one comment, the media took it, ran, distracted us all from what was happening. He ends up selling for billions, and he's laughing all the way to the bank.
And I'm now laughing at someone who, before you know the Sterlings, you'd be sympathetic to, the wife. She's a wackadoodle. Have you heard her phone call where she is not even in the United States, but says, my gardener called me and there's somebody in the house that we have a restraining order? Well,
No.
Obviously the African-American lady that he usually sat courtside with was visiting him.
Oh.
And so, you've got, it was a 911 placed from like France or wherever she was at the time in the Riviera. And it's like, so you're not even there and you're reporting a 911.
Nice.
And you're taking it in bad translation from your gardener who called you to say, well, Senorita, whoever is visiting your husband right now.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't see that. And if they're not, and look what happened. A distraction, no one's paying any attention.
That's true.
And it's a giant scam based on race. It's based on race. So now as we tie this into what's going on as we're being distracted, I make a lot of comments about healthcare. Happen to be one of the leading experts in the nation on the subject of how to fund for healthcare and how to plan for healthcare. Also, retirement planning. Happen to be one of the only people in the nation bringing planning for healthcare in the conversation of retirement and of finance. And the financial industry is doing a wonderful job at making sure that you don't plan correctly. They're trying to make sure that you put money into your 401k. They're trying to make sure you buy a traditional IRA. And ultimately what ends up happening is when you take that money out, it's going to be used against you and you're going to lose Social Security. And this all leads into why the president ends up being a fantastic human being. So I was working this week, happened to sit down with a client, trying to show them how to retire and how to retire correctly and what to do. And luckily they're young enough, and the advice that you could give them is very, very simple. If you're 45 and younger, you're going to want to look at using a life insurance vehicle to help you fund for your health care costs plus your long-term care. Very, very simple. But one of the things that came out is they have a junk car. They've got a 1998 Honda Accord EX or LX. It's got a bazillion miles on it. It's beat to heck. The window's probably cracked for all I know, but it gets them from point A to point B. It's their junk car. They have an SUV to put the kids in and travel the kids around, but they have this car where one of them goes to work and they can leave it in a parking lot and they don't have any worries. Well, the car got hit in a parking lot. Not their fault. They were shopping or something happened and the car gets hit. And the way it gets hit is it hits the front driver's side, the left side part of the car's bumper.
Okay.
The bumper rips off, and unfortunately, the way the bumper is attached to the radiator in the front part of the block of the engine, it rips that. So the car is an instant total. Mm-hmm. Just because it's worth so little, the insurance company it's an instant total. It's going to cost more than the car's worth to actually fix it. But here's the problem. I asked the gentleman the simple question of, well, what are you going to do next? What kind of car are you going to buy? Where are you going to go to buy the car? And he made the joke of, I'm going to have to go to one of those lots that you hear on television all the time. I forget the name. I think it starts with an M. And I said, but you're going to have a car payment
that you previously didn't have because you have an old junker.
You have an old junker. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, think about it. Can you go out and find a car right now, driving around, and find a car for $3,000?
And also, did he, even on the junker, still have like a deductible that was worth more than the car?
Yeah, the car, it's gone. So the car is just...
So it's not like he's even got a really, nice check. Not great check, but nice check to go
got nothing.
Wow, okay.
So now the question I asked him is, where are you going to go to buy a car? Can you buy a $3,000 to $5,000 car? Is it possible? Is it out there? Now, I know it is there. I know there are guys out there.
I was just going to say, it is possible.
I know there are people that go to auctions and they repair cars and they have one-offs. And I understand, but it's not like back in the 70s, 80s where you had used car lots and you had that $1,500 to $3,000 car.
Yeah, you tend to have maybe one or two what we'll call super dealers in your area that, as you say, the car that did not get traded in.
Yep.
That's where it got sold to at low money, and then they can just do modest repairs and put it back out there.
Yeah. So now, how does this tie into the president being the greatest president on the face of the earth?
Why,
now,
tell us, Mr. McGrath.
Well, here it is. We forget. Remember the little thing, Cash for Clunkers?
Oh, I like that program. It sounded so cool.
It sounded so cool. You take a junk car that you could sell for a couple $1,000s that meets a need specifically for this. You trade it in. The government gives you money so you can go and buy a car that gives you a payment. So who's ultimately the winner? The winner through Cash for Clunkers is, amazingly, the car dealership that's selling you the car and the banker. And who's the loser? Well, think of all of the supply of used cars that were out in the market that somebody that's turning a wrench could fix and could repair it to the point where you could Mickey Mouse it, and it's going to last you another 2, 3, 4 years and solve this problem.
Yeah, it could be the second or third car for a well-to-do family, and it can be the only car for someone who's making $8.25 an hour.
And we'll get to $8.25 an hour in a second. Think of what he just did. Completely wiped it out. Took a whole market of vehicles that people could use, and wiped it out. And what did we say? You're awesome. You're the greatest person ever.
You're bailing out those big three, and they need it bad.
And we not only did we say he's awesome, we re-voted for him. Even the people in the state of New Hampshire, because Shaheen Shaheen is him. And what did the state of New Hampshire do? Now, as you pointed out 2 weeks ago, because we missed Thanksgiving, we missed last week, as you pointed out, what was the option or the alternative to Shaheen? I'm not disagreeing, even though I like Scott Brown. I think he's a good guy, and I thought he would do well. But what did the people from the state of even New Hampshire say? Love the policies. Think it's fantastic. Let's continue doing what we're doing. He wipes out a market, takes away the ability for people to buy something that without a car payment, without having to rack up more debt, without being indebted to a bank. Completely vanishes that, turns it around on people, and then on top of it, instead of us screaming and yelling at him, we thank him. If Reagan did the same thing, what would the media and the press say? Vile, sadistic human being out to crush the middle class and poor, and he's only in it for the bankers, he's only in it for the car dealers, he's only in it for the rich.
The problem is to take any of these presidents and say, what would the media in 2014 on December 4th at 9 hours, 22 minutes, 10 seconds East Coast time say, versus if Reagan had done it when he was president.
True.
Because when he was president, he would have been continuing the policy of Gerald Ford and saying to Detroit, the blank with you, which was very popular at the time, and then they subsequently said it to the city of New York. The city of New York asked for the same bailout that Detroit asked for in the Reagan years, and they said blank you.
As they should.
As they should. I'm agreeing with you. But so I don't know that Ronnie would be unpopular making that decision then as opposed to now. Right now, he'd get burnt in effigy because he wouldn't do it.
Okay, so now think of it. Hurting the general public, hurting the middle class and the poor, which we seem to like. Then them turning around and saying, I need to reelect you. You haven't hurt me enough. You haven't stuck the dagger deep enough. I need more of it. I need more cowbell. I need more of it. I need for you to hurt me even further. So, and as we talk about further and why the guy is absolutely fantastic. Out in the news, I believe I don't have it anymore, and I apologize. But news came out surprising that companies are upset. CEOs of corporations are upset with the Affordable Care Act. This is going to come as a shock. They're upset at the Affordable Care Act. And the reason why they're upset at the Affordable Care Act is the Affordable Care Act is going to take away wellness programs. Ultimately, it's going to hinder what corporations can do with wellness programs. Now, the article is on Yahoo. You can find it through jesterfinancial.com. And ultimately, it talks about how CEOs threaten to pull tactic Obamacare support. So ultimately, CEOs are saying now Obamacare is bad because what it's doing is it's going against the wellness program that's going to basically lower or give a
preventive medicine.
But it helps for an employee that's not smoking, employee that's going to a gym, an employee that's doing things to improve their health through wellness programs. They're going to receive an incentive from the employer.
Boy, I'd be the poster boy at this company for that, wouldn't I?
Well, hey, think of how much you could possibly gain by just doing a little. So now the Affordable Care Act states, well, you can't do that because that's you're giving benefits to one and not the other. You can't do that. So the CEOs are saying, there's the reason. We don't like the Affordable Care Act. It's bad. We're not going to adhere to it. We don't want it. We hate it. What is ultimately the CEOs doing? And as I pointed out, they're getting ready to drop your health care benefits. And here they are talking about it. Because the president, as I pointed out, created a bill called the Affordable Care Act, which if you read on page 125, it discusses how it highlights the benefits that have to be given if you give benefits to at least one employee. So ultimately, if you give one employee health care benefits or access to health care benefits, you have to give every employee of a corporation of 50 or more, you have to give every employee a benefit, or you're going to face a $2,000 fine. But if you're not going to give anyone health care benefits, well, you don't have to give anybody health care benefits, and there's no penalty. So employers are going to turn around, and they're going to cut your benefits. And here they are doing it. And on top of that, they're going to reap the rewards for cutting your benefits. They're going to be able to keep that money. And who allowed you to do it? We'll talk about that after the break. This is Eyes and Ears Wide Open, WSMN 1590, Nashua's source for news and talk radio. This is Eyes and Ears Wide Open. I'm your host, Dan McGrath, here every Thursday from 9 to 10 on WSMN 1590 AM, Nashua's source for news and talk radio. We were discussing how wonderful the President of the United States is and how great he is. And before the break, we were talking specifically about the Affordable Care Act and talking about how corporations and CEOs are now starting to look at the Affordable Care Act. Yahoo had put up an article about a week ago titled "Exclusive U.S. CEOs Threaten to Pull Tactic Obamacare Support Over Wellness Spat." And if you read into it, it just talks a little bit more about how CEOs are basically going to start cutting benefits. Here's the excuse. I don't have to give you the wellness program. This is the Affordable Care Act. I hate the Affordable Care Act so much, I don't have a choice. I have to cut this wellness program. So for those of you that are joining a gym, thinking you're going to get that $300 back at the end of the year through your insurance or your wellness program through your employer, that's going to vanish. On top of it, the Affordable Care Act, as we've mentioned before, gives language. You can find it easily on page 125. You can find language on, it's either 125 or 135. You can find language within the Affordable Care Act that gives an out to employers for cutting your health care benefits. It's an actual boon for employers. And as mentioned, if employers across the board just decide to drop your health care benefits through your employer, it's a $1.1 trillion in savings to employers across the board. They're spending $1.4 trillion a year, employers, on their employees' health care benefits, what they're covering in the form of subsidies for picking up a portion of your health care costs. Or health care coverage. Now, not all employers pick up everything, but we'll take a look at the state of New Hampshire. How much is it picking up for each employee? You talk to teachers, and they're upset that they're paying $25 to $50 a month for their health care coverage. You talk to cops, same thing. But you talk to somebody that's working at Citibank and Wall Street, well, how much are you paying for your family's health care? $2,000 a month. Because their employer's only picking up 5, 10, 15, at the most 15% of their overall health care bill. But what does the Affordable Care Act do? It allows even the state of New Hampshire to say, we're no longer covering your health care benefits. Go on the exchange. He's fantastic. Once again, if this was done by George Bush Jr., what would the media today be doing to him?
Laughing?
Would you be told to reelect him?
No.
Would you line up to reelect him?
No.
But what did we do? We reelected him, and on top of it, what did the state of New Hampshire say? Even Jeanne Shaheen, during the debate, said the Affordable Care Act is fantastic. And what did we do? We reelected her. And here it is. It is a boon for large corporations. As I said 2 weeks ago, who does she actually work for? She works for large corporations. She doesn't care about you or I. She cares about the large corporations and how much money can she put into their pockets. Another reason why the president is absolutely fantastic. We're talking about oil, the price of gas. We're down to, what, $2.77? It's roughly $2.25 in places like New Jersey. Pennsylvania is probably at $2.30, $2.40. We're still on the high side, but it has to be shipped further. He blocks, the president, this is how great he is, he's blocking the Keystone Pipeline. He's blocking 1 million miles worth of is it 1 million miles of pipe?
That's what I understand it
over,
to be.
And there's what, 280 million?
There's over 200 million.
So he's gonna block another 1 million miles of pipe because, well, it's really not going to be worth it. And what did we see over the Thanksgiving break? We saw OPEC basically saying we're losing money, we're losing our shirt because the United States on private land is generating its own oil through shale in places like Montana, North Dakota. We have to address this because they're putting in their own supply, which is driving down the cost because now there's more oil than ever before.
Yes!
And thank you very much. And what does the President of the United States say? It's, you know what? If we created a pipeline to ship from Canada down, put it into the Gulf, it's not going to do anything. It's never going to lower the price. What's the point? Well, here's the reason why he's blocking it. If the price of oil goes down under $70 a barrel, what happens to corporations that are in the oil game? They make less money. So he's going to block it so they can make more money. So now, state of New Hampshire, still think Governor Hussein, vile woman, because she was smiling when she signed the bill that we allowed our Congress to pass, increase the taxes on our gas up 4 cents, even higher. Think of it. If gas is $1 a gallon, keeping even with the taxes that we have on it,
okay,
how much more are people going to drive?
A ton more.
So how much more revenue is the state of New Hampshire going to collect?
A ton more.
What is the President of the United States saying? We got to keep the price of gas high because it's good for it's good for our economy and it's a threat to our national security. But in the reality of it, if the price goes down, what happens to the state's income? It goes up. What happens to the income in the person in everyone else's pocket? They get to keep more of it. It goes up. They get to enjoy life a little bit more. But we want to sans that. We don't want you, the listener. We don't want Tim Glenday. We don't want anyone to enjoy themselves. We want to make their lives harder. We want to make it worse for them so we can make big corporations more money.
And again, a short version of my argument to that is
yes,
that when the state of New Hampshire sets these various taxation levels,
yes,
they manage to do so well below Massachusetts.
Okay.
And therefore, I'm still better off. I'm still like the guy with the dollar gas because I'm not paying what Mass is paying.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
And that's why I got booze stores.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
And that's why I've got, lots of other advantages. Although I am going to dine in Chelmsford tonight.
Oh, really?
And it is a chain, and it is both in Salem, about an equal drive, if you will, from Nashua to Chelmsford, maybe 2 or 3 miles. But I'm quite cognizant that my tax is half on my meal in Massachusetts.
You going to T-Bones?
No.
Oh.
But it's half the price taxation-wise. So I would rather go to the Chelmsford outlet than the Salem outlet of one of the national chains tonight, knowing I'll pay less in taxes. So Massachusetts, I give you 1 in the plus column.
Okay. Now, just because I just want to turn the screw on you just a little bit. Our politicians are supposed to be working for the betterment of people in New Hampshire, and we're supposed to make their lives what's the word I'm looking for? They're supposed to make their lives better. It's not about just beating 20,000 people on the border of Massachusetts. But that's what we're conditioned to do in the state of New Hampshire. As long as we're beating the 20,000 people in Massachusetts, we're doing great. Don't care that our lives are getting more miserable. Our lives are getting harder. Things are getting substantially more difficult on a daily basis. We don't care. That's why this president is the greatest guy in the face of the earth.
That is very extremely true.
Our lives are becoming exceptionally harder, while corporations and the extreme wealth are getting easier. They're getting better. And this guy's doing it right before our very eyes. The reason why he's great is he actually can look at a group of people, tell them, I am going to screw you as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to screw you as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to take everything I possibly can from you. I'm going to give it to the already rich person over there, Gene Shaheen included. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it to the rich person there. Ain't I great? And what does the media say? Fantastic. If you try to critique them, what does the media do?
Disowns you.
You're racist. You're a scumbag. How dare you go against us? And then what do the people in the country do? They reelect them.
Well, I will say the strongest part of your argument is the fact that the one industry that doesn't need help is the gasoline industry. I'm not even saying fuel industry because there's different ones. But
yes, well, good point.
If he had come up with something that you said was directly punishing average Tim citizen and was going to line the pockets of corporate world, well, at least there are some industries that are barely on the margin as it is. So I would, as much as be with you, I don't like corporate handouts. At least it would be handing it out to some company that, or even an industry, let's say 3 out of the last 5 years has been in the red. But we all know now, as we paid our $3.54 at the pumps over the last 5 or 6 years, well, these are record profit years for ExxonMobil and them. I mean, I always thought the reason, the poor little local gas station affiliate of theirs only made a cent or two on each gallon was because, well, it cost them so much to pump this stuff out of, the shores of Vancouver and then take it to a refinery and then take it to Boston and then load up the trucks there. I thought there was something in the business until a few years ago when I realized, no, I don't want IBM's profits. I don't want some other Fortune 500's profits. I want to own an oil company.
Yep,
there's nothing better to own. I don't
it really isn't.
I don't care how much the guys go on TV and tell me for my safe at home, which, by the way, that adds, yes, we're all watching now because we all have safes at home. Not a little lockbox, not a hideaway drawer. We all have safes that we ought to be putting in the gold and silver coins to, get away from, hedging what the stock market could do and everything. Even though the stock market will open or has opened 10 minutes ago at record highs.
Of
but
course.
The stock market.
Well, that's why he's great.
Yes. He's done his job well.
Greatest president. Thank you. Greatest president to ever walk the face of America.
You have brought me around to your argument. You really have. Because you know how disappointed I mean, just disappointed, whether I hear them on radio or on television. The Fox business people are every day that they have to say, well, the Dow's opening at a record high today.
Huh?
They sound like they're going to a funeral because it's something they can't attack him about.
No, he's doing a great job.
Because in their industry, I'm a business reporter for Fox. Yeah, well, even the S&P just hit an all-time record. Yes, it did. So he's done exactly what you've laid out. That's the proof of your argument is in what the stock market opened at 9:41 this morning.
And think of it. Is the economy doing any better?
No.
But
we're not building anything more. We're not hiring anyone else.
Thank you.
If you own those stocks, you're welcome. Yes, take a bow. For the webcam viewers, take a bow.
Taking the bow. Taking the bow.
Because it's absolutely true. The country isn't benefiting from it.
Nope. To prove it and to show you just how in the bag the media is for him. CNN, the bastion of unbiased news. They are, if you're talking about down the middle between left and left of left, right in the middle.
Yes.
CNN, you can't get a more, more true, honest, decent, and hopefully people can see the sarcasm or can hear the sarcasm. Write an article, this was back in August. And this was written by Tammy Lundy of CNN, MoneyCNN.com. Income is on the rise, finally. And she talks about how the household income is coming up and how the Great Recession is officially ended 5 years ago, blah, blah, blah. We're no longer in recession. The Messiah, the boy king, President Obama, has solved the world's ills. Yeah, everything's great. And she talks about how the household income has gone up in 2014. In 2011, it was $51,913 household income, average household income. Not a lot of money. Well, in 2014, it was $53,891. Now, here's the beauty of what's happening to us in the world. In 1965, we knew, very simple, the average household income in 1965, according to, and this is going to come as a shock, and I know people don't want to hear this, but this is actually according to the census.gov, federal government information. So in 1965, the average household income for all families was $6,957. If we adjust that for inflation, take a stab at how much that is. $53,000.
That sounds like a treadmill as opposed to running from Nashua to Manchester.
Amazingly, income isn't getting better. People are not putting more money into their pocket. Things are getting harder. Expenses are going up. Everywhere they turn, you can't even go and buy a car for $3,000 anymore because the boy king solved it. But his white guys on Wall Street that he's protecting so well, how much money are they making?
The most they've ever made.
Isn't this guy the greatest president on the face of the earth? On top of it, while he's continuing to screw the middle class and the poor, not only are they reelecting him in the likes of someone like Gene Shaheen, who's doing the exact same thing to people, not only are people reelecting him, the media is thanking him. People are defending him. How is he not the greatest president we've ever had? No one is talking about it. He's great. On top of it, let's start talking about the way he's supposed to help, unfortunately, and I'm not going to try to make this racial, but he's trying to help or supposedly going to help the black community. What's the black unemployment rate?
A gazillion percent last time I looked.
Yeah. What's their household income? Asians, if we look at Asian Americans, Asian Americans, they're making roughly $70,000 household income a year. That's according to the census.
Yeah.
White families are making, I think it's like $63,000 to $65,000 a year on average. Hispanics are making about $49,000, so they're the ones under. That they're the break that's under. They're making on average.
I would bet Middle Eastern all the way through India is also very high because it's very skilled people, doctors, etc.
Yeah. So when you look at their ethnicity within the United States, black households, their income, $38,000. Great guy, isn't he? Absolute and who's who's defending him? Not only are they defending him, they're praising him and how great he is. How is this guy not a god? How have we not enshrined him? But what he has done...
You can only have one at a time. We got Kim Jong-il there, or mentally ill, or whatever his name is.
Hey, he 17 hole-in-ones. The guy's fantastic. After the break, I'm going to show you what wonderful thing he actually did for someone like me. At the end of the day, I'm just a middle-class average guy, but he did do something fantastic. This is Eyes and Ears Wide Open on WSMN 1590 AM, Nashville's source for news and talk radio. You're listening to Eyes and Ears Wide Open. I'm your host, Dan McGrath, here every Thursday from 9 to 10 on WSMN 1590 AM, Nashville's source for news talk radio. Before the break, talking specifically about why the President of the United States is absolutely going to go down as the greatest president to ever walk the face of the earth. Should be enshrined, should be a god, we should have temples built for him. Actually, I'm for giving him not only a third, I want him to have 75 terms. I can't get enough of him. Why? Because what he's systematically doing is destroying the middle class and poor, which I'm fully against. Not for it. It's absolutely disgusting. He's not only destroying the middle class and poor, but he's taking money from them and he's handing it off to the rich white guys in Wall Street. And we're applauding this.
There is a place then that both of you could move to so you could have the 75 terms. Shangri-La.
Really?
Well, I just watched that classic 1937 movie again with Ronald Colman and them. And, they're amazed to see people who are youthful like Jane Wyatt, but then when they finally give their age, well, I'm 200. You don't look a day over 27, Jane. So 75 terms would be very possible.
You know what? If I have to go there and set it up, then so be it. But think of it. As I pointed out, took away the ability to buy an affordable car from people, a cheap third car, second, possible first car. Hey, if I didn't have 4 children, I would be driving around in a $2,000 car that got me from point A to point B, who didn't care that I'd have to drop in heavier oil weight every month just so I didn't hear the rattling in the engine. As long as it got me there, I'd do it. You can't even find those anymore. They don't exist. Cash for clunkers took it away, and what did he do? He made sure that people have a car payment. He made sure people had to borrow money.
Do you not realize that for every used car dealer that went out of business, a salvage yard for those cars went and expanded?
And where did those cars go? Where did all that metal go?
By the looks of some of the equipment here, it was recycled.
Believe it or not, it went over to China. And what did China do with the salvage metal? They created nuclear power plants with it. But we can't do that here in the United States because that's bad. Because we don't want a cheap form of energy. We want to keep the energy as high as humanly possible because we need to make more money for Wall Street off the backs of whom? The middle class and poor. People say, well, you're out of your mind. It's really, what is the price of a barrel of oil right now? It's about 70. What is the price of gas?
$2.50.
Why hasn't it gone down? When it was $120 a barrel, it was at $4 or $5.
Yeah.
Now it's all the way down, and the price of gas has dropped, what, $1, $1.50?
$1, let's say.
It's all about trying to make as much money for Exxon, for big corporations, for Wall Street as humanly possible. And he's not hiding it. He's not lying. He's not trying to be in the shadows. He's telling people, this is exactly what I'm going to do to you. And they sit there and say, you're fantastic. You're the smartest person I've ever. We need to give you a Nobel Prize for how brilliant you really are. And people applaud it. But here's what he's done that's fantastic. Now we know that the wage has gone down, as I explained, that CNN Money, the bastion of nonpartisan, non-biased news reporting, they are right down the middle. If you want to find out the truth about everything, they are cutting edge. CNN, the greatest news organization. I say that with tongue in cheek.
Or buy a Lou Dobbs book, but go ahead.
They're reporting how, hey, median income is on the rise. And then you find out if you just go to, I don't know, really not that difficult. If you go to the census.gov and find historically what people have made, median income, you find out that the median income in 1965 was $6,957. And then you go to bls.gov/data/inflation_calculator. So you go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics database, tables and calculators by subject. We go to inflation calculator, put in that amount of money in 1965. We want to know what it calculates in 2014. $52,438.77. Income hasn't gone up. So now why is he a god? Why is he even better? Because, well, income for the average person's on the rise. We got to stop that. We can't allow corporations to have to spend money. What's the easiest way to destroy income? Easiest way to destroy income is to bring in the supply of people that will work for a cheaper wage.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we just do? 4 million people are going to come in with no skills, no education whatsoever, but they will work. I'm never going to knock somebody from that area not working. They're going to work.
Correct.
So what's going to happen to the average wage?
I believe it's going to go downward.
Isn't it awesome? So I get to screw, as a business owner, I get to screw over employees by saying, really? You want more of a wage? I can replace you.
Except it won't really go downward. What they will do is pass increases to the minimum wage.
Okay.
I mean, places like San Francisco are doing that on their own. But, of course, they're not going to say that, well, we didn't wipe out the price of bread going up or the price of the house going up or the price of the shoes going up. So I'll be stuck with that same $53,000 number.
But everything else has gone up.
But everything else has gone up.
Isn't the guy great?
No, you've made your case, yes.
Because now, here's the beauty of inflation. Now, the housing, unfortunately, for the state of New Hampshire, that's banked its future on property value. The state of New Hampshire will be bankrupt probably within the next 10 to 15 years because the property values can't increase. It's impossible. It's virtually impossible for your house to go up any further. Now, people are going to say, you're insane. That's impossible. My house goes up every year. And I just explained to people, it's not how much your money is, not how much your house is worth. It's how much somebody can actually buy your house. So we know if interest rates are at historic lows, they're at 3%. And at 3%, the bank is going to lend you, let's say you want to pay $3,000 a month for your mortgage, which is ridiculous. But let's say you want to pay $3,000 a month for your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
They'll lend you about $500,000. So how much of a house can you buy? $500,000 worth of a home. But now if interest rates go up to 8, 9, 10%, and you still want to pay $3,000, what's going to happen to that amount of money they're going to lend you?
A lot less than $500,000.
So what is the property value going to be in places like Wyndham, Bedford, Rye? When the interest rates go up, home values have to go down. But here's the beauty. Take the housing away, as you pointed out, we're going to increase bread, we're going to increase food, we're going to increase gas, we're going to increase the inflation of everything, and it's going to hurt the middle class and poor even more. And he's not hiding the fact. He's telling you, this is exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, we haven't uncovered this like we've unsealed the documents of some meeting.
Yeah, this is like he's people say he's not transparent. He's hiding, and he said he was going to be the most transparent. He is the most transparent. He's telling you, I am going to screw you every step of the way. I'm going to take as much away from you as I possibly can, and I'm going to give it to the rich white guy on Wall Street. He's not lying. You ever see the movie Digstown?
Yes, I did.
The very beginning when they're setting up the town, they bring the guy in who's pounding and drinking. He's telling everyone, yeah, I can beat you in darts. You don't want to play me. I don't want to play in cards. I'm a card shark.
Right.
And then when he finally takes them and they're all broke, I told you this is exactly what I was going to do to you.
Going to happen, yep.
And you didn't believe me. As I was doing it to you, you increased it, and I told you you're going to lose. This is exactly what he's doing. And what are we still doing? The media is still talking about how great he is. But here's the beauty. Because of the illegal immigrants, what he's done great for me, for the time being, he's made sure that I don't have to listen about fast food strikes going forward. Because they want an increase in wage, because we're waiting for the shoe to drop on the 4 million people that they gave amnesty. Will they take the job at Taco Bell or McDonald's or whatever for no money? Of course they will. So now everybody working minimum wage is now shut up. He's even better for that. That is the cherry on top. I want to thank everybody for the time. Once again, eyes and ears wide open. WSMN 1590 AM, Nashville's source for news and talk radio. I'm your host, Dan McGrath, here every Thursday from 9 to 10. You can catch everything that I write and everything I talk about on jesterfinancial.com, www.jesterfinancial.com. Thank you for your time and have a great week.